During the second half of the 1980s, many black communities were suffering under internal conflicts. Victim became perpetrator. Perpetrator became victim. Let's take a hard look at vigilantism and gangs. But first, the story of the notorious A-team in Durban. This is Hané Koster's report.
During the 1980s, the township Chesterville south of Durban was UDF territory. One of the people who mobilized the community was Thandi Mamela. She motivated the youth, including her own son, to join the UDF, and was involved in getting people out of the country and bringing in weapons. But things turned sour. The UDF boys started harassing other people who did not want to join in their activities. One of their victims was Sylvia Mbongwa. They petrol-bombed her house and attacked her, but her son, who was staying in the outbuilding, chased them away with a toy gun.
As he took that out, they ran away. And I also went out for them. I said, what is it you want from us? They said, because your pimp is, I don't know how you call them, informers or what. You don't want to join us when we fight these whites, the police and the councillors. You don't want to join us, kill the councillors, the police, etc. I said, no, we won't, we'll never, ever, ever join that.
Then the other side, those branded informers, started hitting back. People in the township started referring to them as the A-team after an American television series. Members of the community say the police assisted the A-team, but they deny this, saying that when they were in trouble, the police never bothered to show up. They say the reason they were branded in pimpies was simply that they had more money and good jobs. Thandi Mamela says the A-team harassed and killed people and burnt their houses. Her house was also set alight.
It was the A-team, Dan Mtembu, and Mtombeni family, and Mpanza family, and the boy from Trebekulu's boy, and many others. And the Isaacs. I won't forget those. Mauser and Popin.
Today, Dan Mtembu, one of the people she implicated, works for an insurance company. He denies that he ever attacked anybody, but says that he did defend himself against what he calls the Tsotsi element. And about the house, he says,
she has never had a house in the first place, let me tell you. Could have been a few incidents where people threw stones at each other, but that house, as far as I'm concerned, has never been burnt. Whilst I was still there, it was never burnt.
Pemba Mpanza faced the difficult choice of either living in Chesterville after being labelled an impimpi or trying to make a new life elsewhere. He decided to stay. Dan moved out years ago. They agreed that the troubled community is still not addressed. Even today, Angelina Magwaza is still too scared to show her face when she tells how her son Booty was killed. She heard that the A-team killed him and that Pemba Mpanza was involved. Pemba says that he shot back when he was being fired upon. He reported the incident to the police, and later they told him that he had killed Booty Magwaza. Some people feel that Thandi is one of those who started all the trouble. But Thandi may have had a reason for behaving as she did. She was a fighter, and she paid a price. Her son was killed by police in a shootout, and she was not allowed to see his body. She lost her possessions and was harassed by the special branch, especially Andy Taylor.
I want to request the Truth Commission to investigate the A-team and try to find out as to, in reality, who were behind the A-team, who were sending them to conduct this reign of terror. When I followed de Kock's case, de Kock did admit that he had something to do with the death of my child. Andy Taylor was the spearhead of the Flak Plus unit in Natal.
Thandi says she went to the commission to request the truth, but reconciliation is not on her mind yet.
And really, I say it. I don't see how I can forgive these people. Never, ever.
The Chesterville story of division, destruction and death is not unique. So-called black-on-black violence was a feature of this period. We ask, was there a hidden hand? Was the mushrooming of vigilante and gangster groups part of a third force strategy? Was black-on-black violence yet another twisted feature of the state's dirty war? Gail Regon investigates.
In South Africa of today, there's a clear line between gangster and vigilante or civic action. Gangs destroy communities, and groups like Pachad in Cape Town want to rebuild them. But in the shadowy history of the 1980s, some gangs and vigilante groups were seen to be cut from the same cloth. They were simply Mabangalala, vigilantes, right-wing and mercenary groups from within the black community who tailored their activities to suit the repressive agenda of the South African government.
It was nationwide, and it emerged almost at exactly the same time in these different towns, in the west, from the Western Cape to the Transvaal, from the Free State to Natal.
It was one of the strategies to suppress the UDF beliefs. The regime was at war with the black people, and they knew which areas were very vigilant. And the only way they could actually try and cut down on numbers was to kill, destroy those townships. And that is why the A-team had to be helped all the way to destroy UDF people in Chester.
Yeah, Kawas, I think, was formed by the police when they saw the youth and the people around this township so united behind the UDF, behind the Loyomo, behind the ANC. And the system thought of a way of how to destabilize. It really terrorized this township. You know, it brought about divisions where people never knew or understood what the whole struggle is all about now, because it would seem as it is black on black.
The security system of the then National Party government infiltrate our communities. And during the infiltration, you cannot really say that this is not a comrade and this is not a member of the ANC or SAICO for that matter. What you see members of the ANC, and through their actions and their activities, you start to begin there, or you start to realize that these people were sent.
And you strongly believe that it was a third force phenomenon in your township?
Strongly believe so. Our suspicion was corroborated when we arrived in prison. There was a certain member of a Russian gang. There was a gang called the Russians. And he relayed to us how de Kock was involved in destabilizing, particularly the ANC in Kuma. He made mention of de Kock giving them money so as to assassinate Mary Agnes Lehola.
During the early 80s, the principal strategy used, as it were, to suppress the militancy emerging in the townships was to use basically the powers of the state, mass detentions, attempt to use the police in particular to prevent gatherings and meetings. But it seemed to backfire. With every new method of repression, communities became more cohesive, more militant, more politically conscious.
It's clear that there's always been a range of surrogate vehicles through which the state security apparatuses effectively destabilized their opponents throughout the 1980s. Precisely because this is a hidden hand, the nature of so-called third force activities has always been covert. It's very hard to establish clear evidence of the links between them. But there's very little doubt, just on the sheer weight of information available, that there was extensive involvement, particularly of criminal youth gangs, in attacks on politically targeted individuals and groupings.
The vigilante groups which emerged had revealed a really quite stark common pattern. In most cases, they were groups, disaffected groups in townships, perpetrating violence mostly against UDF-aligned youth groups. They seemed to operate with what I might call a police license. They were protected from retaliatory measures, and they seemed to enjoy some form of organized support, weapons, transport, and so on. As such, I would say that vigilantism is a sort of classic form of third force activities.
I have the friendship.
1986 Bureau of Information-sponsored peace song was part of the National Party's all-out campaign to win the hearts and minds of black South Africa. It perceived a total onslaught and devised a total strategy in response. A strategy characterized by reform and repression, peace songs and dirty tricks, emergency regulations and upgrading of townships. It then sold the resultant package of gruesome conflict to the world and its supporters as black-on-black violence.
Confrontation between two groups in the black communities became evident. Those who favored evolutionary reform and revolutionaries committed to violence. The ensuing black-on-black violence was an horrific result of the confrontation.
The government has had no choice because it's responsible for the safety of the lives and property of South African citizens to declare a state of emergency.
But of course it wasn't like that, and Mrs. Thatcher and so on were clearly influenced by their perspective of what they could see of the violence. By saying black-on-black violence, you're attempting to give an explanation of the causes, but it's as useful as explaining the causes of the Serbian-Bosnian conflict as white-on-white violence.